Mr. President, without yielding the floor, I'd be happy to entertain a question from the senator from Texas.
Mr. President.
Senator from Texas.
Mr. President, I wanted to come to the floor to pose a few questions to my colleague from Kentucky. But first to say I admire his fortitude and his willingness to ask appropriate and reasonable questions of the administration on a matter of grave importance. This is no less important than our constitutional government itself, that does not give sole power to the administration to make decisions, but recognizes that the Congress is a co-equal branch of government. And indeed, we have important oversight responsibilities of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and there isn't any more delicate and important matter than the limitations placed on the government when it comes to dealing with our own citizens. So I would just, I'd like to ask the senator from Kentucky whether he's aware of some of these issues. First of all, shortly after President Obama took office, the Holder Justice Department declassified and released detailed, previously top-secret legal memos attempting to explain the legal rationale for the enhanced interrogation program that the Central Intelligence Agency used during the Bush administration. Now, these memos were written by the Office of Legal Counsel at the Department of Justice, which is frequently called the lawyer for the executive branch, who issues those authoritative memos. But President Obama, Eric Holder, presumably decided that they would release those previously classified memos that explain the legal rationale for the enhanced interrogation program. And I'd further ask the senator if he recalls that when the Obama administration made these legal memos, highly classified legal memos, public documents, does he remember that the Attorney General made some specific comments? He said, quote, "We're disclosing these memos consistent with our commitment to the rule of law," close quote. Yet today, the same Justice Department refuses to release to members of Congress, including this senator, the senator from Kentucky, and other members who have oversight responsibilities, the very same legal rationale in this case for the drone strikes that the senator for Kentucky is talking about. So I wanted to ask, first of all, the senator of Kentucky whether he believes I've accurately recited the facts, but then to ask him whether he sees a double standard here on the part of the Obama Holder Justice Department, where on one hand they release these legal memos from the Office of Legal Counsel, and in this case, instead of releasing the legal rationale for the authority to make drone strikes, they issue what's in essence a white paper or a press release that was leaked to the news media. So I would ask the senator from Kentucky to respond.
Mr. President, the question from the senator from Texas is a very good one, and there does seem to be a double standard going on here. There seems to be one standard for wiretapping of phones or interrogation, but seems to be a much less of a standard for actually killing. And it seems to be hypocritical, and you would wonder why. With regard to releasing the memos on how they come about their process, some of that was leaked. It's always curious to me. It seems almost as if the leaks come on purpose, as if they were intentional, the leaks that happen right before a nomination process. I don't know the truth of that. But I do think that not only should we get the memos, but if there's going to be a drone strike program in America, perhaps we should actually be writing the rules and sending them to the president, and that would be our job, not to listen to him on what he's going to do with drone strikes in America, but actually to spelling out and having an open discussion, because in America, I don't think that should be a secret, how we're going to go about this in America. So I see no reason not only to get the drone memos, and I think it would be more consistent with their earlier position, but I think what we should do is really be a part of the process of determining how we go forward with, if we're going to have drone strikes in America, what the rules would be.
President, would the senator yield for another question?
Senator from Texas.
I would just ask further of the senator from Kentucky. I believe the question that he has asked, whether the president has the power to authorize lethal force, such as a drone strike against a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and without trial, is a very clearly stated question, and one to which I believe the senator and the rest of the members of Congress are entitled to a very clear answer. I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing with the Attorney General this morning when we attempted to ask him on a number of occasions what his answer would be to this question, and yet he equivocated. He was ambiguous. He seemed to be ambiguous when a clear answer would serve him just as well, as the point the senator from Kentucky has made. But the question I have for the senator is that wouldn't it, in all likelihood, the legal rationale or justification issued by the Office of Legal Counsel at the Department of Justice likely include a discussion which would illuminate and elucidate the answer to the senator's question? In other words, I would assume, without having seen that classified memo, that it would go through a rather lengthy analysis of the hypothetical situations under which these drone strikes might be used, and would, in all likelihood, I think, shed some light on and clarify the answer to the senator's question. Wouldn't that be a reasonable way to answer what is a very straightforward and reasonable question?
Mr. President, one of the things that actually, even piecing together what I've heard of some of his testimony, he did finally admit to some things that I think are consistent with what I'm saying. They haven't put it in writing previously. I would think that he could almost take his testimony today where he almost at some point seems to agree that it would be unconstitutional to kill non-combatants, people not actively engaged in combat. If he would say that, I think he would answer my question, basically, because I've never been talking about people engaged in lethal force. There's always, you really don't get much due process if you're engaged in lethal force is used against you. So you would think if he would just answer that simple question, similar to what he actually started in the testimony, but they won't give us a succinct answer or any answer, really. And so that's the answer we've been trying to get all along.
If the senator will yield for one last question.
From the senator from Texas.
To the senator's last point, I'm reading from a letter dated March the 4th from the Attorney General to Senator Paul, where he says, and I quote, "The question you have posed is entirely hypothetical, unlikely to occur, and one would hope that no president will ever have to confront." But he goes on to say, in response to Senator Paul's question, it is possible, I suppose, to imagine an extraordinary circumstance in which it would be necessary and appropriate under the Constitution and applicable laws of the United States for the President to authorize the military to use lethal force within the territory of the United States. In other words, to the senator's point, on one hand, he said it would be a hypothetical question, unlikely to occur, and one we hope no president would ever have to confront. And then on the other hand, he said it is possible to imagine a scenario under which it would happen. So appearing to say, cast further lack of clarity on something that should be a straightforward yes or no.
Mr. President, the interesting thing about saying it's hypothetical and it wouldn't happen, I could buy that, except for the fact that our foreign drone strike program, a significant amount of the drone strikes are on people not actively engaged in combat. So whether that's right or wrong is another question, but since we already have an example of a significant amount of those not engaged in active combat, it's hard for him to say that this is a rare, unusual, hypothetical thing that could never happen, because it seems like it's a big part of the drone program overseas.
I said that was my last question, Mr. President. I'd ask the senator to yield for. This will be my last question. It strikes me, Mr. President, that there is a clear double standard here. The senator's asked a reasonable question to which he has not gotten a clear answer, and one that's clearly within the purview of the United States Senate in their oversight capacity for the Department of Justice and as a co-equal branch of government. But on one hand, the Obama Holder Justice Department not just released a white paper, but released previously classified legal memos from the Office of Legal Counsel on the enhanced interrogation program, saying that it was consistent with their commitment to the rule of law. And today, in response to an eminently reasonable request, is giving the senator from Kentucky what can adequately, I think, appropriately be called the Heisman or stiff arm, and denying him access to that. So I just wanted to come to the floor and make that point and ask those questions and say again, I admire the senator's fortitude and willingness to stand up and challenge the administration on this issue. It would be easy to satisfy the senator's request. He's made that very clear. He is not intending to block a vote on this nomination, but he is intending to get the information that he has requested, and he's entitled to it.